Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London. Today I'm looking at a book which has come to us from Expert Witness Publishing, and it's in fact being brought to our attention by the Expert Witness Institute, of which both Elizabeth and I are editorial board members. This is an important book, I think, for members of the Institute and much wider areas of interest for anybody who is actually an expert involved in this particular specialism called basically psychological injury. Now, the book is called Legal Mind. It's got a subtitle, Contemporary Issues in Psychological Injury and Law, and it's been written by Hugh Koch or Koch. I'm not exactly sure how he pronounces his name, so my apologies in advance if I've got the mispronunciation. Excuse me. And now Elizabeth and I talked about this book. She was the lead writer on it, and we've given it a title for our book review, Clinical and Legal Disciplines, Two Sides of the Medico-Legal Coin. And this book, I think, is very important as a book for anybody who is a member of the Expert Witness Institute, the EWI, because it does actually give a lot of information. There's the front of it, there's the spine, and then there's the back, and there's a picture of the author, as you can see on the back there. You'll see some basic information. The book is a hardback, which you can probably hear. It runs to 250 pages, just over. At the back, there's quite a large amount of information, understanding the author. It's actually about the author himself. But if we go to the front of the book, you can see the front page. It's dated 2016, and I'm recording this at the end of 2017. There's some information about the author there. Then you can see from that, there's a foreword by James Balanoch, who is an ex-leading figure in the Expert Witness Institute, very well known to all of us in the Institute. There's a useful divider, which is very helpful. And do read the foreword, because that gives you some idea of what this book is really about. Then you've got the acknowledgements, and there's a dedication, which I will just show you there. And then you can see after that the content section. Sections A through to I, which is about the author himself. Then there's a preface from the author. And then after that, some case law, not a lot of case law, you'll be pleased to hear, but there is the usual, looking at it, the usual suspects are there, and you can see, and then we go in. It's nice and colourful. Psychology in the law, very interesting. Online information there and so forth. Sorry, outline information there and so forth. And you can see, just opening it up, you do have boxed sections, again for ease of reference, and you get a few diagrams as well. But I do think it's a very important book. It's very much a hands-on book, in my view, and one that, as I've said, I think anybody involved in giving expert evidence will find this book helpful. Now, as I say, we've called this Two Sides of the Medico-Legal Coin, and this is what we say about the book. As the role of the expert witness is to provide evidence on which the court and the legal team can rely, it's the responsibility of said expert to acquire an understanding of the workings of the court, of course, and ideally of the legal mind. Therefore, the title of this new publication from the Expert Witness Publishing Organisation is therefore significant, although some lawyers have referred to it as confusing. What they may well mean is that the term may be interpreted or construed in a number of ways, and all the better for that. Now, as the author Hugh Koch, or Koch, will remind you, lawyers, barristers and judges have, in his words, quote, a different language or approach based on law, logic, clarity of opinion, legal precedent, and he adds that clinical and legal disciplines are two sides of the medico-legal coin, also adding in effect that transversing the concepts and practices between the two is essential in this civil justice concept of person injury, that's PI, case management. And that's effectively how he approaches the book. And I think that quote's quite important to kick the book off. And he goes on, he's actually a chartered clinical psychologist, is Mr. Koch. I'll call him Koch, I think probably that's probably the way he pronounces his name. And he brings a considerable amount of experience and expertise to the production of the book, having worked as a psychologist with the NHS and subsequently, for example, in mental health services in Somerset and in medical services in Cheltenham, prior to the setting up of his unique medico-legal consultancy, which is certainly worthy of note. And of course we do in court work very much rely on expert advice. He's based in Cheltenham, and the book actually here consists, and his work consists of the 40 psychologists and the one orthopaedic surgeon that he is associated with, and they're tasked variously with supplying the courts in about 105 towns and cities across the UK with orthopaedic and psychological reports. And I can say I've used a number of the reports in the past in some of the cases which finally get to court. The orthopaedic information is particularly relevant, certainly in PI actions. Now, small wonder then that Koch does a most credible job of guiding the reader through the often intricate dynamics inherent in the interconnection in courts of law between the expert witness, the legal team and the judges. And the almost certain result is that the reader derives an extra helping of self-confidence in court, which even for the experienced expert witness can be, on some occasions, rather daunting. And that's the same for all of us. I mean, I appear in court on a very regular basis, so I see it rather differently. But for people who are not as familiar, it is not the easiest of experiences, and we all understand that. Fortunately then, for the busy reader, the book is logically organised in 7 sections, starting with psychology in the law and moving on to evidential certainty, followed by 3 sections on the matter and necessity of understanding the experts, the lawyers and the author himself. And there's a very useful chapter on understanding psychological injury. I think that's very important anyway, actually, for any students who may be pursuing a practitioner qualification after their academic studies, because clearly psychological injuries is an important area to understand and grapple with, even at undergraduate level. And of course what you've in addition got in this book is the focusing on diagnosis, treatment, prognosis, and most importantly translating clinical opinion into quantum. So that's very much really part of the practitioner's remit. Now, this then is a book that can and does provide the expert witness with a formidable armoury of insight and information with which to arm themselves in court. And we're not sure if this is the first time the legal mind or mindset has been analysed, examined and explored by a psychologist. But whether or not this is the case, the book presents us with an intriguing and enlightening read for psychologists, expert witnesses and lawyers alike, as well as any other interested readers. And I think the book actually has more of a general readership in mind as well, because in this day and age there are very many more people qualified at much higher levels of education, and I would have thought this book would be of interest to actually quite a wide readership today. Indeed, for expert witnesses in-person injury cases, the practical advice contained in this book makes it a worthwhile acquisition for the professional library, and the publication date cited at 2016. And I certainly think this is a book that any member of the Expert Witness Institute involved in this sort of work will find very helpful. There's the book again, the front of it, the spine and then the back, and you can see some quotes on the back, which I should just hold up. As I say, the title is Legal Mind and its Contemporary Issues in Psychological Injury and the Law. And again, I think that's very important in this day and age, because that is an area of law which is difficult for, I think, anybody to be involved in. And just for one moment, think of the position of the judge who's got to make the final decision, and therefore will rely upon quite substantial submissions by experts. Chapter 9, for instance, expert skills and relationships with lawyers. I think that's probably very important, because at the end of the day, I as a lawyer have got to get on with the expert, and we've got to feel at one, if you like, so that we know what our case is when it's being presented. You've got some various figures here. The civil procedure rules are mentioned, which are very helpful again. it's just really to give, this is part 32 on experts, it's to try and give you some indication of where you as the expert will fit into the whole order of things. For instance, what we've got in following that is you can see you've got shaded areas. There's a purple area and there's actually a yellow area there. Those are really to highlight particularly important points. You've got, for instance, a case which is set out there. That's the case of Jones versus Caney in 2011. And he really sets out the facts and then a commentary, really to give you again a feel for what is needed. Tips for lawyers about experts. That again would be helpful from our point of view as well. Altogether, I'm very pleased with this book. I think it's a great addition by the Expert Witness Publishing Company. I think it's a great addition to what we have at the moment available to us, because notwithstanding commentaries by certain people about the role of experts, experts have a very important role to play in the work that I do and everybody else does in the legal system. And therefore we do need to know where we stand. We have the CPR and we have to know our relationship and our position vis-a-vis the actual presentation and eventually the winning of our case. So a very big thank you to all concerned for the production of this book, and good reading is what I can say if you do have fortunately have a copy of it. But thank you to all anyway. Bye bye.